everybody, to the Captain Spot. I'm your host, Justin Freeman. 6 foot 1 inches, 273 pounds of fantasy knowledge. And it's Sunday Night Football edition, guys. We are talking Eagles at 49ers. Game with a 46-point total. 49ers favored at home by 7.5 points. This is going to be one of the more unique pricing situations we have ever run into here on this show. Of course, I'll start as usual by telling you to go check out CaptainSpot.com. That's CPTSpot.com. Check out all the goodies we got for you over there. I think you'll really like some of the promo codes we have to our affiliate sites. And I think you'll like a copy of that ebook, $34.99. You can't beat that. But enough of that. Let's hop into the slate where we are talking Eagles, Niners. We got a pretty unique pricing variation on this one. Like, it sticks out like a sore thumb. DraftKings fell asleep at the wheel as they're putting this pricing together, and they've left Deebo Samuel at $200 in this matchup. Now, Deebo Samuel has spent the first 3 weeks of the season on injured reserve. Obviously, you guys know that injured reserve functioning a little bit different this year in this COVID-infested year, where players can now only spend 3 weeks there, or as little as 3 weeks, I should say, there on the injured reserve list before returning back to the active roster. Deebo Samuel, by all indications, will be active this week. As always, standard caveats apply. Make sure we are checking for game day actives and inactives. Both these teams have major injury concerns. Let's make sure we have a very good understanding of that. On the Eagles side of the football, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is doubtful for this game, so we will not be seeing him more than likely in the passing game for the Eagles. Joining him as out are Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey. So no surprise there really on Alshon. Deshaun Jackson suffered a little bit of a hamstring setback. He'll be out in this game. And John Hightower was sick earlier this week. He has since removed himself from the injury report, carries no designation. Miles Sanders, no designation headed into this game. So obviously, we know Dallas Goedert was put on injured reserve after last week. Major setback to him. So this Eagles side of the football, we have very few options in the passing game. On the other side of the ball, looking at the 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo will not be playing this game. George Kittle will be. He carries no game designation, nor does Jerick McKinnon, two guys who were on the injury report earlier this week, both of which will play. Raheem Mostert will not play. He is out, as is Jordan Reed. Matter of fact, Jordan Reed has now gone on injured reserve. So major injury concerns and major fallout to figure out exactly what we are going to expect from both of these teams moving forward. And as we mentioned, Deebo will kind of be the guy that we have to spend most of our time talking about what to do with. With a salary of $200 for the best wide receiver on the field? Yeah, I can say on the field. I was going to say on the team, but yeah, best wide receiver between either of these teams is Deebo Samuel. What can we expect? We have heard the coaches say they want to ease him back into this game. As far as like general game situation, we're not expecting this to be a crazy high shootout. We're not expecting to be like horribly ugly. We are getting backup quarterback play on the San Francisco side of the ball, although you could argue he plays as well as Jimmy Garoppolo. We're really getting backup quarterback play from Carson Wentz, who has looked not very good here these first 3 weeks. So we want to make sure we're accounting for all that properly. But we'll run our simulations. We'll get a pretty good idea and understanding of what to expect. So without much further ado, why don't we hop into the pricing here, looking at DraftKings, starting at the quarterback position. Wentz and Mullins, 10-4 for Carson Wentz, 9-8 for Nick Mullins. Obviously, the 49ers favored in this game by a touchdown. So, we're going to typically want to spend money up on quarterbacks who are favored. And Mullins is favored by a touchdown. That's pretty handy there. We saw Nick Mullins come in and look reasonable last week as one of his first games as a starter this year. And he obviously found some success with the ragtag group of players there in that backfield and in the receiving game. Jerick McKinnon, $8,200 will be the star running back there on the San Francisco side. He split time pretty evenly there with Jeff Wilson Jr. Wilson had a pair of touchdowns last week. He'll cost you $7,000 to throw him into your lineup. I think, obviously, that was pretty foreseeable there on the Wilson side. The number ball guys were able to cash in, or number bet guys, I should say, were able to cash in 20-1 odds on Jeff Wilson being a multi-touchdown scorer. So we did see that coming. McKinnon split the work with Wilson last week, 62% of snaps to 30% of snaps. Jermichael Hasty chipped in for another 8% of snaps. So just know there is a third guy there in Hasty. We don't expect him to be a major part of this game. I don't really think he's in our consideration. Matter of fact, he's not even in the DraftKings pricing. So not going to throw us off, but so much as of right now. As we look around as to how the rushes were distributed, 40% of the team's rushes went through Jerick McKinnon, 34% went through Jeff Wilson, with another 11 going there to Nick Mullins. We saw Brandon Ayuk pitch in for a number of rush attempts last week, I should say. I would expect the majority of those type of plays to now be filtered through Deebo Samuel. I imagine we'll see Ayuk continue to be involved a little bit as a rushing option, but Samuel, that's sort of his forte there. And so a couple ways that we can imagine that playing out. On the Philadelphia side, obviously we talked about Carson Wentz has been playing really, really bad football, and now he has just the worst cast of characters. That pretty much is going to lead me squarely to Miles Sanders. Really interested in Miles Sanders. This 49ers defense is good, but I'm not worried about running away here from Miles Sanders. Sanders gets a massive, massive workload in this offense. Behind him is Boston Scott and Corey Clement. Two guys who I don't think we are really considering using this week. Normally I'm really interested in second string running backs, but I mean, Miles Sanders has such a stranglehold on this running back rotation. He's getting 77 and 78% of the team's snaps in back-to-back weeks, and he's really just controlling the rushing opportunities and receiving opportunities. He's a guy who really doesn't hardly have to come off the field for that team. So once again, as we're looking at cheap options, and with Deebo Samuel priced down at $200, I think that eliminates a lot of the punt plays that we could be looking at. It eliminates our thoughts about Kyle Juszczyk. It eliminates our thoughts about Corey Clement, Boston Scott, those guys. As we look at our pass catching group, Zach Ertz will cost you $7,200, and I think he's worth every penny this week. I mean, there's literally nobody left there in that Eagles rotation. If we think about what that's going to look like this week, it's going to be Zach Ertz, Richard Rodgers, and Hakeem Butler at tight end. You may remember the name Hakeem Butler, fourth-round pick for the Cardinals a couple years back. He has now been signed by the Eagles as a tight end, so we're expecting him to probably be thrown right in the fire right away, because I didn't mention Dallas Goedert, but he's obviously been placed on injured reserve, so he's not even on the injury report because he's off the active roster now, is Dallas Goedert. So we're going to see a ton of Zach Ertz in this game, no doubt about it. Obviously, without Deshaun Jackson, without Alshon Jeffrey, without J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, without Jalen Reagor, we're down to Greg Ward, John Hightower, and practice squad guys. So we may see Deontay Burnett in this game. We may see Quez Watkins get called up for this game. It's really hard to tell how the bottom of that order is going to pan out. But once again, I don't think it's going to be super relevant when we talk about, the $200 price tag on Deebo Samuel, because, I mean, ordinarily we'd be really interested in these guys at min price. But now we're saying not only do we have to pick the right one of those guys, but we also have to pick the right one who also outscores Deebo Samuel. And the odds of that happening are just so thin. The only way you can avoid Deebo is to just go super heavy on mid to high price guys and leave him out entirely. I don't think you're going to get there by picking just the right sneaky guy. I don't think you get there by just picking Richard Rodgers or Mohamed Sanu or somebody like that. I just don't see that working out very well for you more times than not. On the San Francisco side, George Kittle, $9,400. He'll make his return back this week. Really excited to see what he looks like, but I think he's going to be just fine. Brandon Ayuk, $7,800. I think it's going to be I should say that as long as your lineup contains Deebo, and in my opinion it probably should, you're not going to have to worry about pricing anywhere. Especially if you throw Deebo in the captain spot, there is literally not a lineup that you can't put together. You can play Deebo in the captain and get every other player imaginable and every other combination imaginable in the rest of your flex spots. So just know pricing not an issue this week. You can get almost any team you want to. As a matter of fact, even if you have Debo in a flex spot, you can almost put any lineup together you want to. It's just shy of being able to do that. And sort of my favorite lineups include Debo down in the flex and a player like Miles Sanders up in the captain spot. So, yeah, we've got plenty of things to consider there. And again, Kendrick Bourne, 5,800, Ross Dwelley, 2,200. Dwelley will be the backup tight end to George Kittle now. Keep in mind Jordan Reed out. So overall, I don't think we're interested in Trent Taylor. We're not interested in Mohamed Sanu. We're not interested in Ross Dwelley because all those guys would have to not only outperform their price, but also outperform Debo Samuel. And that's drawing really, really thin. As we look at our captain assignments, allocation, Miles Sanders is the runaway. And this honestly surprised me. I was talking with a number of ball guys about this for the past 2 days as soon as the salaries came out. When we saw that, Debo Samuel was mistakenly priced at $200, I said, well, we're just going to be playing 80% Debo lineups this week into captain. And I was surprised when I saw Miles Sanders actually pop as the surprise lead captain. And I just got thinking, how does this even make sense? How can Miles Sanders be a better captain option than Debo Samuel? And I think it's for the fact that with Debo in your flex, you can now play whoever you want to, really. I mean, it's not only Debo in the captain play whoever you want to, it's Debo in the flex play pretty much whoever you want to. You'll probably have to come down on one guy off of the most expensive 5 others. So Miles Sanders is the best option. He's going to project out the best. He's got the best floor-ceiling combo as far as being able to catch the ball out of the backfield. He's going to get you your PPR points. He's going to get even more targets this game based on the lack of other receiving options. I wouldn't be surprised if his snap rate increased. I mean, they just need playmakers on the field if they want to have any chance at all. So I am very interested in Miles Sanders. I think he makes sense as the captain. And I know that feels a little bit counterintuitive, but I think that's the right process on him. Behind Sanders, obviously Zach Ertz, another guy who's going to get super concentrated target share, followed by Nick Mullins, the favorite quarterback there, Debo Samuel, Greg Ward. So you'll see Debo 4th place on this list. And again, that's because we're almost in a point where we're not even considering what the salary allows you to do. We're now considering who's just the guys on the slate that have the best chance of being the highest scorers. It's almost like take the salaries out of the equation this week. And now how would you play it? How would you play it if you could play any 6 guys you want to? Because that's basically what you can do this week. And so Miles Sanders is the guy who's going to outscore the field the most frequently. And so I've got him being at, just right around 35% of optimal lineups this week. And I think that's a really, really interesting thing. On the flex side, Nick Mullins, Miles Sanders, Zach Ertz, Debo Samuel. So, and I say Debo obviously opens up all the pricing for you this week. You don't even have to play him if you don't want to. How crazy is that? Because not only is Debo a low-priced option that opens everything else up, but you just can't hardly spend all the money this week. There's nobody to spend it on. There are no Philadelphia pass catchers outside of Zach Ertz to spend money on. You have to spend it on John Hightower. You have to spend it on Greg Ward. These guys are so cheap that you can really run it with whatever combination you want to. So, once again, I was like, well, if Debo's not going to be the number 1 captain, surely he's got to be the number 1 flex. And he's not. He's the number 4 option because, once again, we're really approaching this almost as if you can play whoever you want to, because that is very, very close to actually being true. So Mullins is the number 1 option in the flex. Miles Sanders, Zach Ertz, Debo Samuel, Jarrett McKinnon, George Kittle, Greg Ward, and then a pretty big drop-off down to Carson Wentz. So the model likes fading Wentz in this game, and by fading Wentz, you can get all those other combinations that we're talking about. So overall, I think this is going to be a really, really interesting slate. I can't wait to see the ownership after it comes out after lock. I think the major decision here is, how do we play Debo? Should we be overweight or underweight on the field on this player? And I'm trying to think about how casual Showdown format is. what are people going to do? Are people going to know that Deebo Samuel is even like a viable option? Are they going to scroll far enough down on their phone to reach the D Samuel $200? If they do, they're going to play him, right? And so I think it's going to be really interesting and it's almost going to be a litmus test for how sharp the field is, I think, as to how many people play him. And once again, if you're going to fade him, you think about the combinations where fading Deebo Samuel works out. And I think it's almost certainly going to be lineups that tend to cluster towards higher priced, or him being outscored by a guy that's like, say, sub $3,000 or maybe even sub $5,000. So you have to think like which guys down in that bottom range could outscore him, because you could potentially gain a ton of leverage fading Deebo Samuel. Like you talk about easy ways to get into a winning lineup, and I forget what the winning prize is for first place this week, but fading Deebo Samuel, hoping something just goes wrong. Like what if he goes, let's just make up a stat line. He goes 4 catches for 40 yards and no touchdowns, no rush attempts. Like that's foreseeable. That's possible. 8 points. Now, ordinarily, I tell you, really, really interesting getting 8 points from a guy who's $200. Like that's huge return on your investment, but that doesn't guarantee him being in the optimal lineup. That means that you have to pick the right one still. It only eliminates that one possibility, and it's a pretty large one though, and you're going to leapfrog past the field if you're to fade him. So it's really, really interesting. I'm not going to tell you whether to play him or not play him. I think obviously the odds are better that you will succeed if you do play him, but you'll be disproportionately rewarded if you don't play him. So pick your poison. It kind of comes up to risk tolerance for you. I think I'll have a pretty diverse perspective, and I imagine I'll probably be underweight since I like to play 150 lineups. But overall, it's going to be a really interesting slate. I hope that you guys have good luck. I've certainly had a great start to the season. Hope you have too. But we'll catch you over Monday night for the Monday night show over on the Mayo Media Network. I know a lot of you guys are looking for the Monday show, like why is it not here on the Captain Spot channel? Just go check out Mayo Media Network. Be sure you're subscribing there. You'll get the Monday night show each and every week. But for now, I'm Justin. Follow me on Twitter at JustinFreeman18. Good luck, everybody.